As I had a copy of the Diagnostic Statistical Manual 5, I thought I would type out a case to defend our fundamental freedoms. Keep in mind I am reading the manual while I create this case for you for all to see how the DSM-5 and the diagnosis of schizophrenia breaches of Sections 2A, 2B of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms of Canada. The article and case begins here. Schizophrenia spectrum and other psychotic disorders include schizophrenia, other psychotic disorders, and schizotypal personality disorder. They are defined by abnormalities in one or more of the following 5 domains: delusions, hallucinations, disorganized thinking, speech, grossly disorganized or abnormal motor behavior, including catatonia, and negative symptoms. As we read the entry of schizophrenia in the DSM-5, we can already see them, the doctors, are judging and making diagnoses based on speech which is breaching the Charter of Rights and Fundamental Freedoms under Section 2B, which claims we have the fundamental freedom of opinion, which opinion is related to our freedom to our speech and how we speak. This is based on the Intro to Schizophrenia Spectrum. While I am writing this case, keep in mind I am writing this while I review and find how the diagnosis of schizophrenia is infringing on our rights as a Canadian citizen of Canada from the DSM-5, so please understand this case is created while we dive through the DSM. Now that we have the introduction showing just how one small part has been infringed upon of the Charter and how our right to speech aka opinion under Section 2B has been infringed upon and breached by the acting psychiatrists who have diagnosed those with schizophrenia, let's dive deeper into this section of the Diagnostical Statistical Manual regarding the delusions aspect. Key features that define the psychotic disorders. Delusions. Delusions are fixed beliefs that are not amenable to change in light of conflicting evidence. Their content may include a variety of themes, e.g., persecutory, referential, somatic, religious, grandiose. Persecutory delusions, i.e., belief that one is going to be harmed, harassed, and so forth by an individual, organization, or other group, are most common. Referential delusions, i.e., belief that certain gestures, comments, environmental cues, and so forth are directed at oneself, are also common. Grandiose delusions, i.e., when an individual believes that he or she has exceptional abilities, wealth, or fame. And erotomatic delusions, i.e., when an individual believes falsely that another person is in love with him or her, is also seen. Nihilistic delusions involve the conviction that a major catastrophe will occur, and somatic delusions focus on preoccupations regarding health and organ function. Delusions are deemed bizarre if they are clearly implausible and not understandable to sane culture peers and do not derive from ordinary life experiences. An example of a bizarre delusion is the belief that an outside force has removed his or her internal organs and replaced them with someone else's organs without leaving any wounds or scars. An example of a non-bizarre delusion is the belief that one is under surveillance by the police, despite lack of convincing evidence. Delusions that express a loss of control over mind or have been removed by some outside force, thought withdrawal, that alien thoughts have been put into one's mind, thought insertion, or that one's body or actions are being acted on or manipulated by some outside force, delusions of control. The distinction between a delusion and a strongly held idea is sometimes difficult to make and depends in part on the degree of conviction with which the belief is held despite clear or reasonable contradictory evidence regarding its veracity. Now that has all been quoted, let's see how delusions infringes on our Charter of Rights and Freedoms of Canada. Persecutory delusions claims it is the belief that one is going to be harmed, harassed, and so forth by an individual, organization, or other group. Referential delusions is the belief that certain gestures, comments, environmental cues, and so forth are directed at oneself. Grandiose delusions are the beliefs that he or she has exceptional abilities, wealth, or fame. Erotomatic delusions is the belief of false view that someone loves him or her. Nihilistic delusions involve the conviction that a major catastrophe will occur. And somatic delusions focus on preoccupations regarding health and organ function. Now that we defined the delusion aspect of schizophrenia spectrum, let it be shown how it breaches our fundamental freedoms under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms of Canada, shall we? As one can see throughout the delusions paragraphs, one can see they, whomever had written the Diagnostical Statistical Manual 5, the book, which in my opinion is the Doctor's Holy Bible, one can see they cite the word belief over and over again. Section 2(b) of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms of Canada, under fundamental freedoms, it claims that we, the people of Canada, are rightfully entitled to b. freedom of thought, belief, opinion and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication. Link to reference: https://laws-lowest.justice.gc.ca/eng/const/page-12.html #:text fundamental %20 freedoms and text opening parenthesis a closing parenthesis %20 freedom %20 of %20 conscience %20 and comma opening parenthesis d closing parenthesis %20 freedom %20 of %20 association. As you can clearly see, 2(b) outlines we are entitled to our beliefs, correct? Can one explain how one entire section of schizophrenia spectrum under delusions be entirely based on beliefs, when we are entitled to our beliefs under Section 2(b) of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms or Canada regarding our fundamental freedoms? The next is hallucinations. Hallucinations. Hallucinations are perception-like experiences that occur without an external stimulus. They are vivid and clear, with the full force and impact of normal perceptions, and not under voluntary control. They may occur in any sensory modality, but auditory hallucinations are the most common in schizophrenia and related disorders. Auditory hallucinations are usually experienced as voices, whether familiar or unfamiliar, that are perceived as distinct from the individual's own thoughts. The hallucinations must occur in the context of a clear sensorium. Those that occur while falling asleep, hypnagogic, or waking up, hypnopompic, are considered to be within the range of normal experience. Hallucinations may be a normal part of religious experience in certain cultural contexts. In regards to hallucinations with self, I have never encountered them. I have spoken of dreams I have had while I slept after smoking weed, but have never hallucinated while awake. When I dream vividly and remember them, hence why when I retell a dream it is vivid. My dreams happen while I sleep or am in a meditation after smoking marijuana. Also, the belief system I fall under is omnism. And hallucinations, we are also entitled to them under Section 2, conscience and religion, as it is clearly claimed that it may be a normal part of religious experience in certain cultural contexts. Religious and spiritual views, rituals, beliefs and materials are protected under freedom of conscience and religion. Link to reference. https://laws-lowest.justice.gc.ca/eng/const/page-12.html#colon tilde:/text equals fundamental %20 freedoms and text equals opening parenthesis a closing parenthesis %20 freedom %20 of %20 conscience %20 and comma opening parenthesis d closing parenthesis %20 freedom %20 of %20 association. The next up is disorganized thinking, speech. Disorganized thinking, speech. Disorganized thinking, formal thought disorder, is typically inferred from the individual's speech. The individual may switch from one topic to another. Derailment or loose associations. Answers to questions may be obliquely related or completely unrelated, tangentiality. Rarely, speech may be so severely disorganized that it is nearly incomprehensible and resembles receptive aphasia, in it a linguistic disorganization, incoherence or word salad. Because mildly disorganized speech is common and nonspecific, the symptom must be severe enough to substantially impair effective communication. The severity of the impairment may be difficult to evaluate if the person making the diagnosis comes from a different linguistic background than that of the person being examined. Less severe disorganized thinking or speech may occur during the prodromal and residual periods of schizophrenia. As one can clearly see, this section of schizophrenia spectrum, just after hallucinations, the disorganized thinking, speech, is clearly based on thoughts and speech, opinion, which is not allowed as under Section 2b. We are entitled, rightfully, to think how one wishes and speak how one wishes, as it is claimed under Fundamental Freedoms with the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms of Canada. 2b. Freedom of thought, belief, opinion and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication. Link to reference. https://laws-lowest.justice.gc.ca/eng/const/page-12.html#colon tilde: text equals fundamental %20 freedoms and text equals opening parenthesis a closing parenthesis %20 freedom %20 of %20 conscience %20 and comma opening parenthesis d closing parenthesis %20 freedom %20 of %20 association. As it clearly is shown, as Canadians we have the right to freedom of thought and opinion in 2b. Opinion is our speech, so it can be easily translated. How is the psychiatric system rightfully entitled to make claims, diagnosis and judgments against our thoughts and opinions, or in their words, our speech? Next down the list is grossly disorganized or abnormal motor behavior, including catatonia. Grossly disorganized or abnormal motor behavior, including catatonia. Grossly disorganized or abnormal motor behavior may manifest itself in a variety of ways, ranging from childlike silliness to unpredictable agitation. Problems may be notes in any form of goal-directed behavior, leading to difficulties in performing activities of daily living. Catatonic behavior is marked decrease in reactivity to the environment. This ranges from resistance to instructions, negativism, to maintaining a rigid, inappropriate or bizarre posture, to a complete lack of verbal and motor responses, mutism and stupor. It can also include purposeless and excessive motor activity without obvious cause. Catatonic excitement. Other features are repeated stereotyped movement, staring, grimacing, mutism, and the echoing of speech. Although catatonia has historically been associated with schizophrenia, catatonic symptoms are nonspecific and may occur in other mental disorders, e.g., bipolar or depressive disorders with catatonia, and in medical conditions, catatonic disorder due to another medical condition. As one can see while reading this section on schizophrenia spectrum, one can see it bases the illness on movements and speech, which body language and speech is also protected under 2b, expressions and speech, opinions. One could use expressions for movement as one can express him or herself using motion and signals of body movements of the arms, face, and legs. Speech is protected under opinion. 2b, freedom of thought, belief, opinion and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication. Link to reference. https://laws-lowest.justice.gc.ca/eng/const/page-12.html #:text fundamental %20 freedoms and text opening parenthesis a closing parenthesis %20 freedom %20 of %20 conscience %20 and comma opening parenthesis d closing parenthesis %20 freedom %20 of %20 association. And last but not least, the negative symptoms of schizophrenia spectrum. Negative symptoms. Negative symptoms account for a substantial portion of morbidity associated with schizophrenia but are less prominent in other psychotic disorders. Two negative symptoms are particularly prominent in schizophrenia: diminished emotional expression of emotions in the face, eye contact, intonation of speech, prosody, and movements of the hand, head, and the face that normally give an emotionless emphasis to speech. Avolition is a decrease in motivated self-initiated purposeful activities. The individual may sit for long periods of time and show little interest in participating in work or social activities. Other negative symptoms include allergia, anhedonia, and asociality. Allergia is manifested by diminished speech output. Anhedonia is the decreased ability to experience pleasure from positive stimuli or a degradation in the recollection of pleasure previously experienced. Asociality refers to the apparent lack of interest in social interactions and may be associated with avolition, but it can also be a manifestation of limited opportunities for social interactions. As one can clearly see, once again our freedoms are infringed upon because the psychiatrists are making claims, diagnoses and judgments based on our speech and our expressions in this section we had just covered. Our speech and expressions are protected under 2b. b. Freedom of thought, belief, opinion and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication. Link to reference. https://laws-lowest.justice.gc.ca/eng/const/page-12.html #text fundamental %20 freedoms and text opening parenthesis a closing parenthesis %20 freedom %20 of %20 conscience %20 and comma opening parenthesis d closing parenthesis %20 freedom %20 of %20 association. For ease of access, here is section 2 entirely. Fundamental freedoms. Marginal note: fundamental freedoms. To everyone has the following fundamental freedoms: a. Freedom of conscience and religion. b. Freedom of thought, belief, opinion and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication. c. Freedom of peaceful assembly, and d. Freedom of association. Link to reference. https://laws-lowest.justice.gc.ca/eng/const/page-12.html #text=fundamental%20 freedoms and text equals opening parenthesis a closing parenthesis %20 freedom %20 of %20 conscience %20 and comma opening parenthesis d closing parenthesis %20 freedom %20 of %20 association. If this does not show that every psychiatrist is stripping our fundamental freedoms and that the DSM-5 infringes on our rights and fundamental freedoms, then I am unsure what will. I know this is just the schizophrenia part and is just a small section, but I am sure if the DSM-5 was dug into, I am sure one will find more breaches. Walter Hurst.